Welcome to the lecture 4 in the module R of the course Data Science for Engineers. In this lecture, we are going to introduce you to the data frame objects of R, how to create data frames, how to access rows and columns of data frame, how to edit data frames, and how to add new rows and columns to the data frame. Let us first look at what a data frame is. Data frames are generic data objects of R which are used to store the tabular data. Data frames are the most popular data objects in R programming because we are comfortable in seeing the data in the tabular form. Data frames can also be thought as matrices where each column of a matrix can be of different data type. Let us see how to create a data frame in R. The code here shows how to create a data frame. The command here where the mouse is pointed creates a vector which is a numeric vector which is containing 1, 2 and 3. The second command creates a character vector which contains 3 strings R, Scilab and Java, and the third command here is creating another character vector which is having entries for prototyping and for scale up. The way you create the data frame is use the data.frame command and then pass each of the elements you have created as arguments to the function data.frame. This command will create a data frame df. When you print the data frame df, this is how the output looks. So, we can see that the names of the variables you have created are taken as columns and the entries in the each column are of the same data type. This is the condition which you need to be satisfying while creating a data frame. Data frames can also be created by importing the data from a text file. So, the way you have to do it is you have to use the function called read.table, and the syntax for that is you assign the data which you are reading to a new data frame. You have to name that data frame which you want to create, and then read.table takes in the argument the path of the file. Let us say you have data in some text file where the data is separated by spaces. You have to use this command read.table and path is equal to path of the file from which you want to import the data. This path specification is the OS dependent. You have to take care of whether you need to use backslash or slash operator depending upon your OS. A separator can also be specified to distinguish between entries. The default separator between the entries of data is space. When you want to see the syntax for importing the data and creating a data frame, this is how it looks. New data frame is read.table. You have to specify the path of the file and then you can also specify the separator that is being used to separate the entries of data. The separator can also be a comma or a tab, etc. So, what we have seen here is you can either create data frames on the go or you can use the data that is already existing in some format and use that to create data frames. Now that we have created a data frame, we need to see how we can access rows and columns of a data frame. The syntax for that is the data frame and 2 arguments has to be passed. The first argument val1 refers to the rows of a data frame and the second argument val2 refers to the columns of a data frame. So, this val1 and val2 can be array of values such as 1 to 2 or C of 1 comma 3, etc. If you specify only val2, which is the syntax given here, df of val2, this refers to the set of columns that you need to access from the data frame. In this code, we can see that if you want to access first and second row of the data frame that is created, you can do so by accessing in the rows. We have to put 1 to 2 comma, nothing in the column specifies, all the columns has to be accessed. You can see in the result from the data frame what we have created in the previous slide, we are able to access the first 2 rows. if you want to access the first 2 columns instead of rows, what you need to do is you need to leave a space first and then comma, and you need to specify the list of columns you need to access, that is 1 to 2, that is shown here in this command, and you can see the result on the console output. You are able to access the first 2 columns of the data frame which we have created. If you want to access the first and second columns using just the column names, you can do so by just specifying df of 1 to 2. This is another way of accessing the columns of a data frame. Sometimes you will be interested in selecting the subset of the data frame based on certain conditions. So, the way you do is you should have the conditions based on which you have to select the data frame, and you should also have a data frame. Once you have, you can use the command subset to get the subset of data frame. Let us illustrate by an example. Now, we are going to create a data frame by name PD using the first line, which has name, month, blood sugar and blood pressure as the columns. In the name we have Senthil and Sam, in the month we have Jan and February, in the blood sugar we have a vector of blood sugar values, and in the blood pressure we have a vector of blood pressure values. You can print the data frame and see how this it looks, but in that data frame what I want to extract is a subset where the name has to be Senthil or the blood sugar value has to be greater than 150. Now, I can print the new data frame which is PD2. The result is as shown in the console output here. The original data frame contains all the entries, but the new data frame PD2 selects these entries because the first entry is selected because the name is Senthil, the second entry is selected because the name is Senthil, the third entry is selected because the blood sugar value is greater than 150. Now, we will see how to edit data frames. Much like lists, you can edit the data frames by direct assignment. We have seen this data frame earlier. We have vector 1, vector 2, vector 3 containing the elements in them. We have created a data frame using this command. You can print that data frame also. Now, if I want to change the second entry in vector 2 as an R instead of Scilab, I can achieve that by using this command. I am accessing and I want to replace the element in the second row, second column with a string R. When you execute this command df of 2 comma 2 is equal to R, what it does is it replaces the entry Scilab with R as shown in the results. You can see that the Scilab has been replaced with the R. This is how you can edit the data frame by direct assignment. Next, we see editing a data frame using edit command. So, what you need to do for this is you have to create an instance of data frame. For example, you can see that I am creating an instance of data frame and naming it as my table by using the command data.frame. This creates an empty data frame, and I can use this edit command to edit the entries in my data frame. So, to do that, what I have done is I am assigning whatever that is being edited into the data frame my table. So, when I execute this command, it will pop up a window where I can fill in the details what I want to fill in, and then when I close this, this will save the data as a data frame by name my table. Next, we will see how to add extra rows and columns to the data frame. We will continue the same example which we have used, and now let us say we want to add another row to the data frame which we have created earlier. So, we can add extra row using the command rbind, and to add an extra column we use the command cbind. Let us see how we can add an extra row using rbind command. The syntax for that is rbind the data frame to which you want to add and the entries for the new row you have to add. You have to be careful when using rbind because the data types in each column entry should be equal to the data types that are already existing rows. So, we are creating another row entry in which you have in the column 1, that is vec1, we have a numeric data type 4, in the column 2 we have a character variable c, in the column 3 we have a character variable for scale up. So, this command adds the row to the data frame, and when you print the data frame you can see that row has been added to the original data frame. Now, let us see how to add a column. Adding a column is simple. This can be done using a cbind command. The syntax for that is cbind the original data frame and the entries for the new column. Now, I am going to add a new column called vec4 which contains the entries 10, 20, 30, 40, and when you add a new column to this and print the new data frame, you can see that this vec4 is added to the existing data frame. Now, we will see how to delete rows and columns in a data frame. There are several ways to delete rows and columns. We will see some of them. To delete a row or a column, you need to access that row first and then insert a negative sign before that rows. It indicates that you have to delete that rows. So, let us see the example here. Now, from the data frame we have, if I want to delete the third row and the first column, that can be done using this command. So, I want to delete third row, so I chose the third row and insert a negative symbol before it. Similarly, I want to delete a column 1, I chose that column and then insert a negative symbol before that column, and I am assigning that to new data frame df2. Now, when I print the df2, you can see in the results we do not have the column vector 1 and we do not have row 3, which is what we expected to happen. We can also do conditional deletion of rows and columns. As we have seen, this command will delete column 3 from the data frame what we have created. So, the explanation goes as follows. We have a data frame, we want to access all the rows, and in the columns we want to access those columns where there is no vector 3. That means, we want to access vector 2, vector 4 and vector 1. So, this exclamatory symbol says no to the columns that are having column name vector 3, and I am assigning that to data frame 3. When I print data frame 3, you can see that there is no column vec 3 in the data frame which we are looking for. We can also delete the rows where we have an entry 3 by using this command. So, what you are saying here is access those rows where the element in the vector 1 is not equal to 3, and we need to access all the columns. So, and we are assigning that to data frame df4, and when you print the df4 we can see that the row which is having the entry 3 is deleted from the data frame. Now, we will see how to manipulate the rows in the data frame and what is called as a factor issue. R has inbuilt characteristic to assign the data types to the data you enter. When you enter numeric variables, it knows all the numeric variables that are available. When you enter character variables, it takes whatever the character variables you are giving as categories or factors levels, and it assumes that these are the only factors that are available for now. When you want to change the element in the third row, third column to others, what happens is it will display a warning message saying that this others categorical variable is not available, and it replaces that with a NA. You can notice that the place where we want others to be there, we are having NA, and we can also see the use of word factor in the warning message. How to get rid of this factor issue is the question now. New entries in R when you are entering should be consistent with the factor levels that are already defined. If not, those error messages will be printed out. If you do not want this issue to happen, what you have to do is, while defining the data frame itself, you need to pass another argument which says strings as factors is false. By default, this argument is true. That is the reason why you get this warning message when you want to change the string characters into new string characters as an element. Now try doing the same manipulation. You want to change the third row, third element to others and print the data frame. You can see that there is no NA anymore and we achieved what we want. In this lecture we have seen how to create data frames, how to access rows and columns of a data frame, and how to delete rows and columns of a data frame, and so on. In the next lecture we are going to see some other operations that can be done on data frames. Thank you.